Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Get Hired workshop. We have got an awesome set of panelists here today to join us for our panel discussion with American corporate partners. Really excited to have everyone on the call today and really excited to hear what they've got to say. They've got some great guests that they're bringing on, and it's going to be a great discussion. So I'd like to introduce our two moderators for today, which are Eric Brew, who is the Manager of Military Engagement, and Leslie Coffey, the Vice President of Military Engagement for ACP or American Corporate Partners. So when they jump on, they can give us a brief discussion of who they are, what they do, what ACP does, and then we can jump into a conversation. So for all you guests out there, if you haven't gotten registered yet, make sure that we're going to put a link in the chat. So make sure you go ahead and get registered for our upcoming virtual career fair. Really exciting stuff. We've got a great set of employers and we've got a lot of awesome information to share with you. So without further ado, I would like to introduce ACP, Eric Brew, and Leslie Coffey.
Hi, Kayla. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be here today. As Kayla said, I'm Leslie Coffey. I'm a VP of Military Engagement for ACP, but I'm also an active duty military spouse. My service member has been serving nearly 30 years, so we are preparing him to get hired. So I look forward to learning from this panel today for his next transition, in order to pay it forward. So Eric, I'm going to turn over to you for a brief introduction.
Thanks, Leslie. Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Brew. I'm the Manager of Military Engagement at ACP. I'm an Army retiree. I retired back in 2020. I'm also an alumnus of the program. So I've got a big heart and a big love for this program. My wife is an alumni of the program, and my daughter-in-law is currently in the program. So we are a family dedicated to ACP in the program. But I'm excited to be here and learn from this incredible panel.
Thanks, Eric. Yes, I'm an alumni as well as there's four of us here on the line, and my spouse is in the program too. So lots to go around. But today's webinar, as you know, it's all about getting hired. And we're thrilled to be joined by two multi-time mentors and the veterans that they assisted to do just that. We're going to discuss the importance of learning from a career professional, somebody that has experience in that space you're looking to get into. And really what's most important is not being on that journey alone. But first, let's start off with some introductions. So if I could give our multi-time mentors an opportunity to introduce themselves. Laura, I'll start with you, and then Josh, if you can introduce yourself after.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Lara Jarvis. I work for the Coca-Cola Company in our finance organization. I was born into the military. My father is retired Air Force and have been actually had the military as my customer with the Coca-Cola Company. So I'm very pleased to be here today and to hopefully answer all your questions.
Hey everyone, Josh Horesh here. Great to be here. So excited to participate on this panel. Hope you're all excited as well. Just by way of introduction, I do work at BlackRock. I've been with BlackRock for almost 10 years here. Started my career at Merrill Lynch, actually. I was there for about 3 years prior to joining BlackRock in 2013. So I've been in the financial industry for about 13 years now. So just really excited to be here and appreciate the time, and looking forward to helping you all out as best as I can.
Thanks so much, Josh and Laura. Next, I'm going to pass it over to Hector and Heather to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Hector Deleon. I am a retired Marine. I was retired medically due to combat injuries in Afghanistan. I've been in the workforce for about 6 years now. Just finished a program with Josh earlier this year and got a ton out of it. Right now, I am a client success manager for a global payments company, and just finished my MBA as of last week. So that's a little bit about me.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Konger. I am a controller for a property management company called Island Home and Estate Management. I'm an Air Force veteran, 7 years, and I had incredible success with this program. So I'm just very excited to be able to share my experiences with everybody else.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for your service and especially for your willingness to join us today to share how to get hired. So Eric, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let's start with our veterans and then we'll go from there.
Outstanding. Okay, so first of all, welcome my brother and my sister. I'm glad that you guys are here. Thank you so much for joining us. Heather, I'm going to direct the first question to you. I'm curious, what do you feel was the biggest challenge you faced during your transition leading into the job hunt?
Okay, so I'm going to age myself a little bit here, but I was transitioning to the civilian world during the beginning of the last Great Recession. So everybody was convincing me to stay in job security, paycheck, guaranteed paycheck, healthcare, all of the wonderful things that the military has to offer. And actually now we are currently facing another possible economic downturn. So my recommendation for everybody on what was useful and helpful for me, just be adaptable, come up with a detailed plan, structured goals, but then also be able to pivot when life happens because nothing always goes as planned, and be resourceful. There's so many wonderful programs and wonderful people out there, supporting the military. So using everything, that's available out there for veterans to just, advance yourself as much as possible and then be resilient because, it's a bumpy ride. That's life.
I could not agree more. Hector, what about you? What was the biggest challenge that you faced leading into the job hunt?
Great question, Eric. I think for me was, believe it or not, the networking part. It felt really awkward for me I felt like it was something I'd never done before, where I was like purposely trying to connect with people, getting myself ready for, the next step. So just the networking part of it was a little challenging for me. And just throwing myself out there, really, getting on LinkedIn. I'd never used LinkedIn before. So just the networking piece of it was really challenging.
Yeah, I recognize that. Not easy for us, is it?
It's not, it was not.
But Hector, I can just look at Josh over here and he's just beaming. He's just biting at the net because he's so proud of you. We've got a lot of, it's just glowing from proud. So Josh, being that he was really uncomfortable with networking, felt awkward, I can speak to that from being a protege. Having somebody pour into you, it takes some getting used to because you're used to doing all the giving. How do you really make them comfortable to be willing to open up? How did you convince Hector, utilize LinkedIn? Please share.
Yeah, it's a great question. And look, at the end of the day, I do believe that partnership and mentorship, it is a two-way street. And look, I've been really fortunate to work with Hector, who was incredibly open-minded and took advantage of this opportunity in this mentorship program. And I do think it's really important to have a really strong opening meeting, right, and build a solid foundation for your mentorship, right? And what that means is you need to establish trust. And you need to communicate openly about your goals, your accomplishments, and of course, what are your objectives for the future? Personally, I like to ask questions around their career progression, their personal lives and interests. Whenever you're working with people, you need to find common ground. You need to build a good personal relationship, and it can't just be all business all the time. Hector actually still makes fun of me till this day for his Astros beating my Yankees year after year. But in all seriousness, I do like to learn about what motivates individuals? Where do they get their energy from? Where do they need help? What are their goals and aspirations? And then, of course, explain my background and how I could potentially help. But I also believe that you have to provide real examples of success, right, with previous mentees that I've worked with. And I think if you can provide real examples and tangible ways that mentors can help, that helps with buy-in from the protege. But I do think you have to set a structure. You have to agree on how often you want to meet. What are the key focuses? What do they hope to gain from the mentorship? And then, of course, have real agenda items to tackle for each meeting. So that's how Hector and I were able to kind of open up to one another here.
That's fantastic. And I can tell that he was in great hands. So Laura, how about you? Did you have a different method with working with Heather to really have her have that trust in you and to know that she could open up to you and be vulnerable? Vulnerability can be challenging for those from military connected community.
You're absolutely right, Leslie. And honestly, a lot of what Josh said was very similar to what I did. I look at my protege's profile and find those points of connection. Like, where do we have similarities? Where do I have places where I can encourage them to go, so that we have some talking points in those first few sessions. I've discovered that talking to them and kind of making as relatable as you can. So, I'm just a person too. I've had struggles myself. We've all been there. Helps make that a lot easier. And one of the things that I tend to do is I have a very large networking community that I belong in, and very much in finance. And I have some former military personnel within my network who are very willing to raise their hands and help my proteges. And one of the things that I do to help with the networking is connect my proteges to one or two of them, just a handful, to kind of give them that point of contact that somebody else has done this. They've made that bridge. They've made it work, and that gives them that success story that Josh was talking about as well. So it helps them a little bit more focused, but it allows them to networking without feeling like they're trying to add 100 people to their network without knowing what they're doing.
I love that, like just not drowning too much.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Before we hand it back over to hear from our veterans and Eric, I am curious, Laura, I can hear your passion, and Joshua, I can hear your passion. What makes you come back to want to continue to volunteer again? I mean, this is volunteering your time. That's something we can never repay. So what makes you continue to come back and be a mentor over and over again? Laura, can you start us off?
Yeah, so I've been very lucky throughout my career to have amazing mentors myself. And when the opportunity with ACP came up, I just felt the need to pay it forward. The military is something that's in my blood, and a group of people that I passionately support. And I get so much out of each of these relationships. I've created friendships that'll last a lifetime because of this organization and because of my mentoring relationships. And it's just hard to say no once you have that wonderful experience.
Yeah, I totally agree with Laura. I personally did not serve in the military, but the bottom line is I have tremendous respect for anyone who serves in the military and defends our freedom. The military is the backbone of this country, and it's so important to the stability of our country. And, let's face it, whether it's a military veteran or a spouse, it's a major commitment. And it's a decision for the whole family, and that impacts everybody in that family. And I've always been a believer that if someone's going to join the military to defend our nation's freedom, like the least I can do is help someone navigate the transition process from the military into corporate America. That's personally one of the best ways for me to give back to the great folks who serve our country, just given my background and experience. I mentioned it earlier, but I've been with BlackRock for about 10 years. I've been in the industry for about 13 years. And in my current role, I lead a team of 15 sales professionals. And, some of the best candidates that I've hired and some of the folks that I've worked with, the best ones are former military veterans. And I've personally as Laura said, I've been very fortunate to have great mentors along my career journey. And I do believe that military veterans can just bring so much experience to a company. And sometimes people just need the right guidance and help, like I personally did, especially if you don't have a ton of experience in the corporate world. So I would just also say, speaking personally, like in my experience, it's so rewarding to help someone who served our country land their next job, or help them with their interview, or help them with their resume. And I've personally really enjoyed working with Hector and my previous mentees.
I've got to say, Joshua and Laura, as a recipient of mentorship, right, through the ACP program, as a veteran, I could not thank you more for your heart to give, for your dedication to my brothers and sisters. Hector and Heather, you guys had rock stars as mentors. Like these two are incredible. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to Heather. You've been sitting there smiling and being nice, but I got to get back to you. I'm curious. We've heard what kind of great mentorship you had, but I'm curious, what made you decide to seek the mentorship through ACP in the first place?
Well, I can't believe that I hadn't heard about the program, sooner, and I wish I had, but it actually was perfect timing because I would say pretty well established in my career, but I was facing, everybody faces challenges in their careers, and I definitely was. So when I interviewed for the program, I thought at the very least, I could get some guidance on how to overcome and handle some of these challenges that I was facing in my current situation.
I love that. Yeah, sometimes and that's a hard place to be in too, isn't it? The hard place is to give yourself permission to not have all the answers, right? To give yourself
Totally.
permission to say, you know what? I might need somebody in the industry that I'm trying to break into, that I want to pivot to. I need somebody there that can really help guide me.
And what better way through other people's experiences to learn? So
Absolutely. All right, Hector, what about you, buddy? What drove you to ACP, man? What made you seek ACP mentorship?
So great question. So I had tried navigating the corporate world on my own for a couple of years, and I felt like I was just kind of treading water. Wasn't really where I wanted to get to. I didn't really feel like I was navigating and getting the results that I wanted to. So I started looking for other opportunities from where I was at that time in my career. And I would get interviews, and I would think the interview went great, and then I would just hear nothing back. And at the same time, I just felt like I just wasn't. I keep going back because I just wasn't navigating it correctly. I felt like an outsider. Felt like I wasn't really speaking, the language that the rest of my peers were, and I really felt like an outsider. And I felt that I needed someone's help that had been there, had navigated that course successfully. And that's when I decided to reach out to someone. I had never heard of the ACP program before. And whenever I did see it, I was like, wow, what a great opportunity to get, firsthand knowledge of someone that has been there, done that, and has a proven track record of being successful. So that's what led me to the ACP program.
I love it. Yeah, that navigating that elusive language of civilianese can get real difficult for us, can it? I mean, understanding the way the civilian world works and the way corporate America works, it can get daunting. It can get really hard and really kind of murky and scary. So I'm glad that Joshua was there for you, man. Leslie, I'm gonna turn it back over to you.
Yeah, for sure. So, for Josh and Laura, I 86% of those that come to our program, they don't know what they want to do. They have no idea. So how do you work? I'll start with you, Josh. How do you work with those that you're assisting to kind of narrow the scope? They don't know what they don't know. It's a whole new world out there. How do you help them to figure out a career path that they should go towards so that they can get hired?
Yeah, I think we've all kind of been in this stage in our career where it's like, what do I do next, right? And again, I think what it goes back to is you have to get a good understanding of where do people get their energy from and what motivates them and excites them. I like to understand what experience do they have, whether it be in the military or even previous roles. I think it's important to get a better understanding of what role do they think they want to pursue, and then from there, helping them think through what are some of the pros, but also some of the cons, right, in each industry or role. I like to play a little devil's advocate as well and just make people think a little differently. But I think at the end of the day, it's really important to understand what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, where do they get their energy from, and what are their goals, and then from there, helping them really identify what is the right path from there.
I see we have comments saying that they love that, where you get your energy from. Thanks, Bruce. Same. I'm really fortunate that I have a love labor. So, every day is never work. Laura, how about you? How do you go through and help them to figure out what is the right fit to pursue next?
Very similar, trying discuss with them, what are their interests? What do they like doing? Not necessarily what have they been doing for their job, but what do they like to do personally? You know, thankfully, most of my proteges have been in finance, and I, as I mentioned, have a very large network in the finance organizations. So I have a lot of people that they can actually talk to and say, hey, do you want to be a financial advisor? Do you want to be a controller? Do you want, and talk to people in jobs that are potential opportunities for them to help them determine, is that something I want to do? Or maybe I want to go a different route. And I encourage them to do as much research as they can. I mean, it is very daunting, but there are a lot of resources. Career.com is a great resource for job descriptions. So, you know, kind of do a little research and say, you know, what does this actually mean? What is an actuary? What is a planning and performance manager? Like, what do these job titles really mean? And help them kind of figure out, like, weed through all the corporate speak, as we've said, and figure out what exactly do they like.
Oh, I love that. And I think, Chad mentioned in the chat, what is your why? I think that was one of the hardest questions for me to answer, right? Like, I knew what my why was for 25 years in the Army. That was easy. I knew what my why was. But when I had to step out and figure out that, the world was my oyster and I could have just about anything I wanted, like, what was my why going to be now? I love that you both dig in so deep to that. And that becomes like the focal point, because it means we land well, right? It means we don't just get a job. It means we land well. We land in the right culture. We land in the right organization. We land in the right position fit. I love what you guys are doing. Okay, I'm going to take it back to Hector. Hector, I need to know what keys to success, right? What were the keys to success? What were the factors that led to you landing your job? And then, two-part question, brother. How much of a role did Joshua really play in those keys?
I know it's a two-part question, but I'm really going to have to start with the second question here. I think without Josh's help, I wouldn't have been able to land the role that I'm in right now. I started my mentorship with him in February of 2022, and April of 2022, I had a new job that I'm still in that I absolutely love. We did interview practicing. He coached me through that. We worked on my resume. We worked on salary negotiations. We worked on everything that I had never done before. So just being, and I guess to answer the first question, the key factors were me just having an open mind. This is something I didn't know, just being a sponge, soaking it all in, really trusting in Josh that what he was telling me was in my best interest, and, doing my part of it as well, because Josh was giving me all this information, but it was up to me to actually put it to use. He wasn't there with me in the interviews. He wasn't there, in the other conversations that I was having. So it was really up to me to do the second half of, putting all that useful information to good work. And couldn't have done it without you, Josh. I'm still very happy. I've progressed in my career. He's helped me with my education. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to grad school or not. We talked about that, and all that fed into me, landing this job that I'm in right now that I just absolutely love. So
I love that shout out, man. I love that shout out. Josh, you are killing it, brother. I love it. And I'll tell you, listen, I've heard both Josh and Laura talk about it, and now I've heard Hector talk about it. The one word that keeps coming back is trust. The mentors are here to create trust with you. And then what happened was you trusted him. So when Josh told you, hey, look, this is how salary negotiation goes. This is something we get to do. It didn't matter how many positions I got or what my next command was. It didn't matter. I never got to negotiate my salary, right? As my mom said, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit, right? You get your salary and you move on. So I love that you're getting that. Okay, Heather, that's a tough act to follow, but I am going to turn it over to you. I want to know what your key success factors were, and then how much of a role did Lara play in your landing of your.
Well, I was very fortunate to get matched with a master networker. So Lara herself is fantastic and great, and always had, no matter what problem or question I had presented to her, she always came up with an insightful solution or recommendation. But she also gave me access to all these other wonderful people who were very eager to also help me in my journey. So I interviewed with a nationwide recruiter who gave me a lot of feedback on future interviews. I had multiple top level executives review my resume for suggestions on changes. So the list goes on ways that Lara has helped me. I really can say I left a job that was not fulfilling and was a very challenging place to work. And with Lara's help, salary negotiation, the whole process, I now love my job and am in a place with a fantastic culture, and it wouldn't have been without Lara's help. So
That's awesome. Laura, it sounds like you definitely understand that old adage, your network is your net worth, right? I love that
Yes.
you're sharing with your proteges. And I think, Heather, you touched on really the culture piece, right? That's so important to us veterans, right? Culture and hitting the right fit and finding, because we spend so much time in an area and in an ecosystem where it's the camaraderie and the brother and sisterhood, and so finding the right fit and finding the right culture is so vital to us. I love that you're there. I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you. Cool. Okay, Leslie.
Yeah, so what they have shared with us, Hector and Heather, it really gives a little bit, it gives some context to the numbers that you and I see every day, Eric. We see that those we check back in a year ago, 2 years ago, 85% are still in that same position. And that's because working with the mentor, they are able to figure out the right culture, the right path, the right level, so they're not underemployed. And you all just really gives us some context. It makes my heart so happy to understand more than just the numbers. But Laura, Heather, when she started us off, she talked about some hardships she was in her journey, meeting you. And I'd really like to hear, because you're a multi-time member or mentor, how do you work with those that you assist if they are going through a challenging time, or maybe they're getting ghosted, or maybe they've been rejected? Like, how are you there to help through those challenging times?
Leslie, that's a great question. And I think the key for everybody is to remember we've all been there. We've all had rejection. We've all interviewed for a job and not gotten it and had that minor heartbreak or whatever it is. And kind of reminding them that they're not alone is very, very helpful, because, once they realize it's not them, it's not a personal, it's nothing against them. It's, somebody was just more qualified or more experienced, and reminding them that, like I said, it's not personal, and just kind of taking it away and walking through the steps of, what happened or what is the situation, and let's turn it around. Let's take that and make it, let's turn it into a positive somehow. So you're having these struggles at work. Well, what can we do to, make them a better fit for you, or, find something else that is, but try and help them kind of see the bigger picture, and just remembering you're not alone. We've all been there, every single one of us.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I can see why Heather would feel comfortable working with you, and then the same, Hector, with Joshua. So Joshua, Hector gave us this laundry list of all the things that you helped him with right off the beginning for the job search process, but I'd love for you to talk about, from your perspective, how you best set up those that you assist up for success. Like, do you have a checklist and you start at the top, or how do you go about that, and really just explaining how it works in the civilian sector?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I admittedly, I can't say that I have like this checklist per se, but I do think that it is incredibly important to just make sure that you're staying patient and that you're staying positive, right? I mean, it's a very tough environment out there right now. I mean, when you just think about everything that's going on, you have a very aggressive Fed who's hiking rates. You have, inflation and rising costs that remains persistent. You still have the banking concerns out there. All of this is going to put pressure on corporations, which is going to hamper the ability to spend and hire. Now, I'm not trying to be negative, but I do think we need to have a better understanding of like what's really going on out there. And sometimes the job search, it can take time and it can take a few interviews to land a role. So again, you just really need to stay positive and patient. What I've found in my experience, my career and many of the folks I work with, like our careers are never linear, and oftentimes like the promotions, the new jobs, like they don't always happen on your time when you want it to happen. So again, I think you just have to really stay patient. I do think it is very important though to have a very strong resume and leverage your mentor, right, for that interview prep. Very exactly what Hector mentioned. And I interview candidates basically for a living. And what I've found is that it is hard, even when I've interviewed, it is hard to impress someone in a simple 30-minute interview. So, practicing your answers to questions like, tell me about yourself. Why are you looking for a role in this company? What about this role excited you? Why would you be a good fit for this role? These are all test questions to see how you answer them. They're looking for, are you nervous? Are you long-winded? Do you bring energy and conviction to your answers? Do you have the right skills and qualifications? Did you do your homework and prepare for this interview? So I do believe some of the things that Hector and we worked on is you want to tailor your answers and you want to tailor your examples on your resume, to the roles that they're hiring for. So I do think, while I might not have a checklist, like making sure you have interview prep, polishing up the resume, it's so important so that you can align with whatever role that you're looking to pursue and whatever role you're interviewing for.
Okay, so I have a question for you. I'm gonna kind of throw you a curveball. Josh, I'm gonna throw this back at you. Okay, I'm gonna throw this back at you, so don't be mad at me. Okay. Question. I want to ask, how can mentorship or a mentor help someone better prepare for a virtual job fair? Like we've talked about all these things about interviewing and being in person, and we have to know that, but we know that we're getting a lot of job fairs, and a lot of those job fairs are virtual. So how can you best help your proteges? How can a mentor best help their proteges prepare for a virtual job fair?
Yeah. It's an interesting question. Look, I do think a lot of the things that happen in person, whether it be in person or virtual, still remains the same. But what is interesting is that, when you are, let's say, going for something virtually, like it is harder to build a connection virtually, and people will look for certain things that you might not necessarily look for in an in-person interview or at a job fair. And I do think like what's very interesting in this world that we're in post-COVID, people have a tendency to show up virtually, not as professional as they would in person, right? And, when I've interviewed candidates, for example, they might not be wearing a full suit, right? Or they might be taking the interview or the job fair in a location that might not be the most professional background, right? Even they might be taking it from a childhood bedroom or something. And it's not going to be a judgment on whether you get the role or not, but I do think it is important to treat it exactly how you would if it was in person. Like you want to show up, you want to be ready to rock, you want to look presentable and professional, you want to show that you're the best qualified candidate that's out there, right? So I do think that's important. And what's challenging in this virtual environment is, let's say someone is interviewing someone back to back, like you have only 30 minutes, like I said, or 45 minutes, whatever the interview or the job fair is set up for. And like I said, when they are asking questions about, why you, or walk me through your resume, it is important that you're not long-winded, right? Because you only have 30 minutes or 45 minutes, and the interviewer has a list of questions that they want to get through. And if they only get through 3 or 4 of them because you're so long-winded and you're not having conviction and energy, like that's gonna show up, right? So I would just say try to show up, bring that energy, bring that conviction, be relatable, have that big smile on your face, make sure that you have that professional setting. And I think everyone will do great here, but just try your best to show up, whether it's virtual or in person, exactly the same as you would either way.
Wonderful. That's very, very helpful because I think July 25th it is that we have a virtual hiring fair coming up. So those in attendance today are going to take all those tips forward and really hope to get hired. Laura, I have a question for you. It's a two-parter. One, I'd love to learn what you took away from working with Heather or any of your proteges, because you have multiple proteges. And then also for those in attendance today, you know, this workshop is all about helping those in our community get hired. So if there was just one thing about the job search process that you would like those in attendance to learn from you, what would that be?
Okay, so first thing is, specifically what I've taken away from my experience with Heather is the reminder that we all benefit from having somebody to talk to. She's heard my problems almost as much as I've heard hers, and she's offered me almost as much advice as I've given her. I mean, it's always a two-way street. It's never, you know, one down on the other. So just as long as you have an open mind and remember that you can learn from your protege as much or more than you're gonna impart knowledge. So the one thing, I'm going to give you two because there's two things that are critically important, I think. And I've already mentioned one, networking. And I know it's daunting and I know it's a little nerve-wracking, but start small and just build your network, because one person leads to 10, leads to 100. It snowballs, and the people you know are going to be more helpful than you can even possibly imagine. The other thing that I'd like to say, and this is just a little bit of a warning, I think, of one thing my first protege with ACP told me is they were given a presentation. He was still in the military, and they were given a presentation that kind of said the corporate world is very cutthroat and very backstabbing. And I really just want to contradict that and say it's not. You got to do your research on a company's culture, but I've never had that experience, and I've been in the corporate world for 25 years. So I hope that people remember, like, be open about it. You may hear things that may try to dissuade you, but the corporate world is not as cutthroat and nerve-wracking as some people may want it to present it as.
I love that. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. So Joshua, what did you learn from Hector? And then, you know, what would be the one thing that the audience should take away from you for getting hired?
Yeah, I'm glad I'm getting an opportunity to answer this question on Hector, since he gave me such a glowing review earlier. I want to just make sure that Hector gets the credit that he deserves. And you know what I would say is all the credit in the world goes to him. I mean, he is positive. He has a tremendous work ethic. He's a fantastic father and husband. He's extremely intelligent and motivated. I mean, I was personally always just so impressed with his ability to juggle everything he had going on between pursuing his MBA, landing a new job, you know, of course, being a husband and a father. He was just always so positive, so coachable, always took advice and acted on it, and always leveraged help when he needed it. And you know, I would say, like, one of the things that I've learned from him is what I would just say, like, all the struggles that military veterans go through behind the scenes. Like, you just never know what someone is going through, even though they put on, you know, a smile, they act like everything is fine. And, you know, mental health is extremely important, and not everyone wants to share challenges that they're faced with. But, you know, let's face it, like, some veterans are experiencing challenges transitioning out of the military. Some have had very close friends pass away, unfortunately. You just never know until you ask. And I do think it's important to just not judge anyone, be empathetic, and be kind to everyone, because deep down, you just don't know what someone's going through. And, you know, Hector's been fantastic. And as time went on, you learn about things that he's experienced that, you know, I personally would never know if I was sitting in an office with him, or if I just had a casual discussion with him, or had a few quick interactions, because he was always just so positive and always had such a good attitude. If there was only, you know, one thing I would say, try your best to leverage the resources around you. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Like, you have to have a solid network and lean on the people who can help. Your mentor might not have all the answers. I don't have all the answers, right? But I do believe having a strong network and leveraging people who want to help is going to be very beneficial. And even if your mentor isn't a pro at interviewing or resume building, at the end of the day, we all want to see you succeed, and we want to help. So even if we don't have the answer, we're all going to figure out a way, and we're all going to find a way to help you all. So long-winded answer, sorry, but wanted to really give Hector that shout out.
Wow. Okay, Leslie, I have a question for you. I'm an alumni. Can I have 2 more mentorships? Because I would like to go through a mentorship with both of these two. Is that okay? Can I do that? Maybe I've got an inside track. Maybe I can get some here. All right. So listen, Heather, I'm going to go to you next. This is one of those important questions for our community, right? Our brothers and sisters. What is that one thing that you've learned about the job search process, about the whole process in and of itself, that you absolutely wish you would have known, and that you have to make sure our brothers and sisters know?
I would say don't delay. The earlier you can start on investing in yourself, your growth, your development, the more marketable and successful you'll be. Don't hesitate, sign up for this program as soon as possible. It's only going to benefit you. For me personally, it sounds dramatic, but it really was transformative for me. I experienced unexpected, crazy, hard challenges the past year, professionally and personally. And with Lara's guidance and support, I really feel like, a year later, I am a stronger, more confident version of myself. So just don't hesitate, don't delay, sign up. It's an investment in yourself and your future success.
I love that. And you hit on something, and Leslie, you've heard me say this. You hit on something, you called it transformational, right? If I could be king for just a day, I would stop calling this transition and start calling it transformation. Because that's really what it is, because it is not an event, right? It's a process. It's going to take a lot longer than a couple of years for me to undo 25 years of institutionalized thinking, right? It's going to take a lot longer than that. So, man, that was a powerful thing, Heather. I appreciate that. All right, Hector, now you've got to follow that. Man, you guys are killing it. Hector, you got to follow that, buddy. What is the one thing that you learned that you wish you would have known, and that you have to make sure our brothers and sisters hear?
I think for me, the most important thing that I learned that was really hard was it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out to people. It's okay to ask them questions. It's okay to, ask them how they've gotten to where they are today, their mistakes, their successes, their experiences, and just, use that as a tool. I think in the military, a lot of the times we're taught to, hey, you stick to what you're doing. You don't ask for help. You get the job done. And it's a little counterintuitive, because what happens if you're in contact, you call for fire. You call and you ask for help. So I think that's the biggest thing that I wish I would have known, is that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out to these programs. It's okay to, have a mentor. It's okay to not know what you don't know.
I don't know if I've ever heard it said better. Bottom line, it's okay. It's okay. If you've never done this before, it's okay. Wow, that was okay. I'm done.
Eric, on that note, since it's okay, we would love to invite everyone on our call today. Ladies and gentlemen, enter your questions into the chat. We want to hear from you. We want to take questions and answer all of those hard things that you want to know. You've got an awesome set of panelists and subject matter experts on the call today, so feel free to ask away. And with that, we'll take your Q&As. If you haven't registered already, get registered for the upcoming career fair. We'll go ahead and post a link in the chat. And Eric, if you want to go ahead and take it away for Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to find the Q&A real quick.
We've got one in the chat right now that asks, how does the protege selection work for mentors?
Oh, man. Okay. You want me to take that, Leslie?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the way the selection works, you guys have heard Josh and Laura and Hector and Heather talk about a lot of, we found common ground, we found common industry. The selection is going to be very simple. We're going to start with industry fit first, right? Industry, career goal, fit first. And as we start to pair you, because the beautiful thing is ACP has no AI and we have no algorithm. We have a staff with amazing hearts and incredible brains that know how to take what our proteges are asking for and find just the right fit. And I think today is, as my grandmother would say, proof is in the pudding, right? This is it. This is the proof right here. So what we do is we look for that industry fit first, and then we're going to look at your likes, your dislikes, your personalities, your hobbies, and we're going to find all of the demographics that make you as the protege, you as the veteran, the transitioning service member, the military spouse, the most comfortable with the person you're talking to, because we want you to let them pour into you, and you need to be comfortable with that person to do that. So I hope that answers the question.
All right, so we have another question here for our mentors. What is a good response when they ask at the end of the interview, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, happy to take that one. So whenever you're interviewing for a role, typically, let's say they're 30 minutes or 45 minutes. Let's just say it's a 30-minute interview. Typically, what the interviewer likes to do is spend about 20 to 25 minutes asking the candidate questions, and then they always want to leave time for you to ask any questions that you have of the interviewer. Excuse me. So I would always recommend coming prepared with a list of questions, and that could be, talk to me about how I would be measured in this role. What does success look like? What is the culture? Whatever it is that you think is important that you want to understand. But when they ask, do you have any other questions? Let's say you've already ran out of your questions. Of course, I would always thank them for the time. I would also ask if there's anything that you can address, right, to demonstrate your skills and qualifications for the role. And if not, then I would personally ask, what are next steps in the process? That's going to be a good indication of what next steps are going to look like. Typically, there's a round 2 or round 3. They might have you come in and, meet with one of their managers, right? Or have you come in and give a presentation. But it's always good to know, like, what are next steps, so you have a good understanding of when you might hear from someone on the team or their HR team who's facilitating the process.
Thank you, Josh. I'm going to take this next question, Leslie. Michael has asked, I'm a pre 9/11 veteran, right? Desert Storm era. Does ACP have a program for me? And if so, how does that work? So, Michael, we are primarily grant funded. So we are funded for post 9/11 veterans. However, we have a great board member, General Petraeus, who came to us a few years ago and said, hey, I love what you guys are doing, but I need you to build something. It's got to be something for our pre 9/11 veterans. And so our founder went to work, and our chief of staff and all the great leadership that we have in our organization, and we built this thing we call ACP AdvisorNet. And what that is it's a very similar program, right? It's not the guided one-on-one, but it is a platform that hosts, and Leslie, correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it's 19,000-ish veterans, 12,000-ish advisors. Yeah. Most of our advisors are actually mentors in our program, so it's kind of cool because they double dip and they help us out. But there's great advisors. You can go on that platform and you can search by location, you can search by career fit, you can use most of the same search criteria. It's just you're going to find that mentor and connect with them. And that can be found on our website at www.acp-usa.org, all the way to the top right. So, Michael, I hope that answers your question. Leslie, do you have another one or?
No, that's exactly what I was going to say with AdvisorNet. You can look by company, you can even look by zip code. There's, again, 19,000 veterans and over 12,000 advisors. Most of the advisors are mentors that are just on short-term breaks. They don't have the bandwidth right now for the one-to-one. So they're kind of on standby for one-off conversations or one-off answering of questions. You can filter by company, by career, how much experience, lots of ways to play. It's almost like ACP's on LinkedIn there. Someone else asked, Chad, what is the process of becoming a mentor? You can apply acp-usa.org, and all of our mentors are vetted. We're going to do just like we do for the veterans and spouses. We're going to get you on the call. We're going to ask you, what do you feel comfortable mentoring in, your background, a little bit more about that. And then, of course, if you're one of our if you work for one of our corporate partners, then we'll just share that you have volunteered so that they have, so they're aware that you're going to be part of the program too, because that's where about 80% of our mentors do come from, our 120 corporate partners. But step one is do the application. And then step two, we're gonna get you on the phone call. You'll be assigned a point of contact to ACP, and they're gonna be there with you every step of the way. Now's a great time if you're thinking of, because May 18th, we have mentor orientation. It's going to give you a whole overview of what mentoring looks like and how to become as phenomenal as Josh and Laura. And then you also have a handbook, and again, that point of contact is there with you throughout. The next question is, what is the timeline or process for getting started with an ACP mentorship? So Eric, I'll just quickly take, regardless of where you are in your journey, if you've ever served at least 180 days post 9/11, we can assist, even if you've got 20 years. If you're currently active and you're looking, to get started, just like Heather said, don't delay. I will tell you, when my service member, when I had him started, because my family's livelihood depends on this. So what better advice, right? A year out from terminal. We start a year out from terminal, so it's still being connected and in contact with his mentor for salary negotiation, because you can start working during terminal. Now, if you're less than a year out, today, right? If you have a little bit more than that, maybe hold off, but that's kind of like the ideal window, 12, 15 months out. And then anytime post-service, if you've ever had 180 days post 9/11. And Eric, there's one more if you want to take that one.
Yeah, I'm going to pose, Laura, I'm going to pose this question to you from the chat. And this is one, I think this is going to be important to a lot of us, because I know I've heard this. If I was your protege and I had an interview and the interviewer told me that my military leadership doesn't matter, how do I handle that? What do I do? What's your advice?
That is a really good question. And personally, for me, if I were the protege and that had happened to me, that's kind of a big red flag that may not be the company I want to be working with, because if they're not valuing your military leadership, your military experience, it's not going to be a good fit. And that's sort of the direction I would go. Now, there's obviously potential other factors in there. But to me, that just strives as a big red flag. And maybe we need to go look at some other companies that definitely value the military personnel and the things that our military personnel and former military personnel can provide a company, because it is vast what they can provide. So that would kind of be my first reaction.
Okay. Yeah, I think mine too. I think we see eye to eye on that. Okay, Bruce asked the question. He said, what if after being matched with a mentor, we don't feel it's a right fit? Okay, here's my advice. I'm speaking to my brothers and sisters, the veterans, the military, the transition military, and the military spouses. None of us would go out to dinner, order a steak, eat it down to bone and gristle, and then turn it back to the kitchen to ask for a new one if it was poorly cooked, right? If something is not a good fit, please communicate. Communicate with your point of contact. I get it. Sometimes personalities don't mesh. It's okay. But we want you to communicate that early and often so that we can get you the right mentor. And that goes the same length. If you're a senior NCO and you think you're going to go into HR and you get on the phone with an HR mentor and man, you learn about the day in the life in HR and you want to run for the hills because that's not what you want to touch. Tell us, I'm switching to cyber. Okay, we'll switch your mentor, but you have to communicate. There is we at ACP, we have a ton of incredible tools and a lot of talented people on staff, but no matter how far I dig to the bottom of the rucksack or the sea bag, I have never found a crystal ball. You got to tell us. You got to let us know so we can get you in front of the right fit.
Hector, I think we've got a great question that you can maybe address, which is somebody's considering grad school. Congratulations last week on your completion. But they're concerned about a gap, so they would actually be full-time and having a gap. What are your thoughts? Would that be a concern for their career progression?
I don't think that bettering yourself and pursuing your education would ever be looked at negatively, especially for grad school with that sort of experience. So personally, even though I chose to continue working, I think that if you choose not to, it would not affect you negatively. And kind of to piggyback off what Laura said, if you do find yourself sitting in front of someone that's kind of criticizing you for that, maybe it's not the right fit, not the right culture, as I don't think, bettering yourself and pursuing your education should ever be looked at negatively.
No, I think that's a great answer, Hector. I love that. Leslie, I'm actually going to pose this question back to you. I know we haven't talked about this, but I'm going to do this because I think you're the perfect person to answer this. Tamika asked, does ACP support military spouses who have 20-year gaps in work experience due to caregiving and trying to re-enter the workforce? I know that that's a life that those are grounds you have walked. How does ACP help our military spouses?
You mean for my first 25 years, the Army always making my decision to resign? Is that what you mean, before COVID? No, absolutely. We're here to help. If you're a veteran spouse and you're already out of the service, if your veteran is disabled post 9/11, then we'd be happy to assist. It's all about getting us on the call. We're going to listen to you. We're going to understand your goals, your needs, and what exactly. Everyone's journey is unique. Everyone's season of life is unique, and that's why we do the customized approach, and that's why you have a human listening to your individual interests and your individual goals. So Tamika, yes, please sign up. You can be, lucky you could be paired with a Laura. I think Laura's taken right now, but another potential Laura right now. We've got a deep pool of mentors. They're all vetted. So as much as we love Josh and Laura, I'm still in touch with my mentor 5 years later. So definitely reach out. We can assist.
Yeah, and I want to just touch on one thing too when it comes to our military spouses. We serve 3 unique populations of military spouses, right? We service all of our active duty spouses, regardless of the point in career your service member is, right? They don't have to be transitioning. They could be a brand new E1 or E3, it doesn't matter. Military spouses active duty are all eligible for the program. We also serve our Gold Star spouses and our spouses of disabled post 9/11 veterans. So that's the population of spouse that we serve. We love loving on our spouses. I love loving on my spouse. So of course we love taking care of our spouses, but no, I love it. And yeah, Leslie, what else? Do we got any more? Trying to keep up. There's so much going on.
I think we're good. This is a great conversation. We're going to hand it over to Kayla, but first of all, thank you so much, Joshua, Laura, Hector, and Heather, for your willingness to share your time and insights with our audience. I know I learned a great deal today, and I hope they did as well. Kayla, we're going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Leslie. Thank you guys all for joining us today. This has been an awesome panel. I think question. There was a question there about fairs and how the pre-process works, right? When to upload your resume? Do you upload your resume? Why do that? So when you are registering for virtual career fair, it is so important to upload your resume for a few reasons. You've got a ton of employers who are looking through those resumes ahead of the actual career fair event. And so they can select you and schedule a time to talk to you prior to that or before the event or even during the event. So super important stuff. Second part to this question, and we're going to wrap it up. 3 minutes left, but there's so much good information, and you guys have a ton of knowledge. So I have to ask. You asked the dreaded resume question, right? You asked 1,000 people, you get 1,000 responses. But I would like to know from each of you, what's your advice to our attendees on resumes? Should they opt in a video resume? Should they opt in a traditional, non-traditional? I mean, what is your feedback as mentors on the dreaded resume question? Eric or Leslie or Josh? Anybody want to hop in? Last question.
So I'll jump in real quick. So personally, I think your resume needs to be a reflection of you at the utmost. There's so many quote unquote rules of what's right and what's wrong, and they all vary depending on which HR person you talk to. So, I mean, I think it really needs to be the best reflection of you and your talents. Is much more important than the format and how long it is and all of that stuff. You want to put your best foot forward, and that's your first point of contact.
Yeah, I totally agree with Laura here. the format, et cetera, is not as important to me, but more about what's inside the resume. And I do think you should try your best to tailor your resume. I mentioned this earlier, based off of what the job description is, right? I've always found it helpful to, look at what the job description is, look at what they're looking for in terms of qualifications, what are the skills that they're looking for, and then try to tailor your resume that fits that actual job description. Regarding the question around like the virtual cover letter, et cetera, it can't hurt to do all of that stuff. Actually, I would probably question like why someone wouldn't want to submit the virtual cover letter if you have an opportunity to kind of film yourself and answer a few questions. I know some firms do that. I would personally do that. I can't imagine that hurting an opportunity. So just my opinion there.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback real quick off what Josh just said. I've always looked at the resume or the job announcement. I've always looked at the job announcement as a test. And when you walk in to take a test is a specific number of questions requiring specific answers. Your resume needs to be the answer key to the test. Make your resume shine about what you've done that answers the questions on the test. It's very simple.
Great advice, guys. Thank you so much for everything today. You guys have been fantastic. It has been amazing listening to your stories and your experience with ACP. For everyone out there, make sure you get to ACP's website, check out their information, look into mentorships and connect. And for May 25th career fair, make sure that you go ahead and get registered. We'll put the link again in the chat. We really, really appreciate you guys attending, and we really appreciate our panelists and guests today. So thank you guys so much, and we are concluded.